Welcome back, true believers, to another very exciting video for the channel, one that I've actually been meaning to make for quite some time now. And I do, just before we start, apologize in advance to all you amazing viewers out there who have been wondering where I've been and where my videos have been for the channel. And mainly it's because I've been occupied with my own personal life, but also, sadly, the fact of the matter is, there's nothing going on. Mainly, the main topics that I love to discuss here on the channel pertains to superhero video games, not necessarily the films or the TV shows, but specifically within the gaming industry and the superhero video games that pertain to these very exciting, engaging, and interactive titles. And on that front, with Marvel and DC, we're still waiting for some major updates for, of course, Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and recently Marvel's Avengers, which is set to release its Hawkeye DLC story content with a free update and the next-gen upgrade on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, and a few other additional things that are coming in the next patch, set to release on March 18th. So that game is going to be updated soon, but it's not necessarily an update a whole lot of people are too excited about, and I can't really say for myself that I'm all that hyped for it, but I will play the DLC on a live stream once it does come out with Hawkeye and give my thoughts there. But for that game itself, I don't really think it's going to be lasting for too much longer, considering that it's not really in the best of places with the public eye and its perception that has amongst fans and the community. So that's where we stand on the current subject of superhero video games. But mainly for this video, I want to take time to talk about some other video games which I highly recommend that you go out of your way and play, and actually buy, because that way you can support these amazing developers and these incredible experiences for just how insane they really are. And this is actually a massive franchise. It's not like this is some small indie game that no one's heard of. This is a pretty big franchise, but for my audience and you guys watching, you're mainly usually hearing me talk about superheroes and Marvel and DC, so not necessarily anything more on the kind of obscure front of the video game genre. And funny enough, these are two games that I have previously live streamed on the channel, so it's not anything new, but you may not be aware as to what these titles are, you meaning my audience, who's mainly hearing me talk about Spider-Man and Marvel and DC and all that stuff 24/7, which I love doing, but I also, shockingly enough, like other things just besides Spider-Man. So that's why I want to take time in this video to highlight two great games that I definitely think deserve your attention. And funny enough, I have discussed these previously in past videos. In fact, during my last video of last year in 2020, I pretty much highlighted everything that went down during that year and actually discussed my game of the year. And no, it wasn't Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is still a great game in its own right, but it was actually this masterpiece of Persona 5 Royal, which came out on March 31st of 2020. So it is still a fairly recent game. And speaking of recent, even way more recently, about less than a month ago, pretty much like a week, 2 weeks from now, or since now, is the official sequel to this game of Persona 5 Strikers. So we have Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers. So basically, what are these games is pretty much what I'm here to discuss for you today. And what they simply are masterpieces within the genre of the JRPG format, Japanese role-playing game. And Persona 5 is a series that has been around for quite some time, developed by one of my favorite developers, actually, known as Atlus, who, if you don't know exactly who they are, you may know them from the game Catherine, which is a really great story-driven, linear-based type of game that really focuses on the characters that you are actually playing as. And what Persona 5 does, compared to Catherine, is take that experience and amp it up to the nth degree. Now, the reason why I want to break down why these games are so special and important to me specifically is pretty much how I found them in the first place. So my own personal journey with Persona 5. And so Persona 5, the original game, came out in 2017, and it was also deemed back then a JRPG masterpiece. And I personally did not get around to playing it until early to mid 2018. I wanted to play it for quite some time because everyone was raving about it. It took me a while to get it, but I finally downloaded it when there was a sale happening on the PlayStation Store, and I got it, and it was fantastic. The base game itself already lasts for about 100 hours plus. The core plot is that you're this brand new transfer student in a high school in Japan. You're living there for a full year, and you play out the entire game throughout the span of 1 year, each individual day. You're a student by day, and a phantom thief slash pretty much superhero by night. And as you journey across your whole year-long adventure, you meet these amazing characters, you go about your daily school life, you try and take down evil individuals that are threatening, you know, Tokyo and Japan in crazy ways. And how that happens is dealing with this alternate reality pretty much called the metaverse, where they can awaken to what's called a persona, and you gain special abilities and actually embrace your true self. Now, these games, both through Persona 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, are all about like super in-depth narrative portrayals of characters coming to terms and grips with who they actually are underneath the surface, because some of these characters are very troubled, some of them are kind of running away from issues that they don't want to face, or they're denying their true selves. And the whole message about all these games is you gotta accept who you are and embrace that and own that and be just one with your inner self. And it's really meta in that regard, because this happens with your character as well as all the other side characters in the entire game. Not just for Persona 5, but all the previous games. And by the way, this isn't a sponsored video or anything. I should have probably said that in advance. This is genuinely just how I feel about these games. And the crazy thing is 2018, once I played Persona 5 before Spider-Man PS4 came out, I was still loving just going to these places that I'd never been before in Japan, because I've traveled, you know, in certain areas in the United States. I've been to the Grand Canyon, I've been to New York, I've been to Hollywood, but Japan is always a place that I've wanted to visit. But being in this game, I feel like I've been there. And sadly, recently, last year, due to COVID-19, there has not been a lot of possibilities to travel anywhere because everyone has to stay at home. So when Persona 5 Royal came out in 2020, when everyone was cooped up and locked at home, I thought, oh, this is going to be the same exact game that Persona 5 was, with more stuff that I can play while just trapped at home. And I can go to school, I can talk to friends, I can go to different places in Japan I want to always visit. I can, you know, and save the world at the same time with their powers that they have while they're in this alternate reality of the metaverse. And it's just so intricate that released around that crazy time. But the difference is, and I should probably highlight this too, is that the difference between Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal is that Royal is pretty much the perfect definitive version of Persona 5, meaning that it is the same exact game that Persona 5 is, except now it has a bunch more stuff. It has new soundtrack pieces with amazing songs that happen near the end of the game, enhanced combat mechanics when you're fighting enemies, updated visuals so the graphics look even better, especially on when you're playing it either on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, or now through backwards compatibility of the PlayStation 5, and mainly new characters. Now, I won't spoil anything about either of these games, but particularly with Persona 5 Royal, they introduced two new characters within the game of Kasumi Yoshizawa and Takato Maruki, who is the school guidance counselor, and then Kasumi is one of your new classmates who you get to encounter during the game, who has also transferred into your new school, just like the main character, Joker, or his canon name is either Ren or Akira. I go by Akira, but Joker is your main character, and you get to interact with all these other characters that you bond with by forming the Phantom Thieves throughout the majority of the game. And again, no spoilers, but just having these interactions with these characters over the span of the base Persona 5 game lasted over 100 hours. With Royal, there's even 20 more hours to expand on that. So Royal pretty much lasts over 120 hours your first time around. And that could include, you know, taking tests, studying, hanging out with friends, fighting bad guys, you know, expanding your bonds with your confidants throughout the entirety of this year-long period that you're staying in Japan in. And it's such a meaningful experience that you play for that long. Now, granted, it is a turn-based combat system, so that might immediately turn off some of you guys who are more tuned into like Spider-Man PS4 or Batman Arkham, where there's like combos and stuff and you get to do free flow combat. This is nothing like that. Think of more the sense of like the original Final Fantasy games or Pokemon. And speaking of Pokemon, you have to try and capture different personas who each have their own weaknesses, just like you do with your own certain persona, with you and your confidants and your friends, and they have their own strengths and weaknesses, which is both a metaphorical aspect of the game and a literal aspect of the game when you are fighting with them and as them. And it just makes the experience all the more worthwhile. And again, no spoilers, but the additions of Maruki and Kasumi easily made this game an instant game of the year. I already thought it was fantastic with the first game, with Persona 5, but it was missing something I thought a bit more, or I just wanted more of the game pretty much. But once you actually play Royal, and you experience the stories even further continuing with Kasumi's character and Maruki's character, it is a roller coaster of emotions. And speaking of which, we do have the sequel, of course, that came out not too long ago, of Persona 5 Strikers, which does take place half a year after the events of the original Persona 5. And what that means is that you have already formed all these intricate, leveled, and detailed depth bonds with your friends and the main character. So those connections have already been thoroughly established, and they are already continuing their journey as the Phantom Thieves within this sequel. And now, instead of being turn-based combat, there is what pretty much is considered a hack-and-slash type game, similar to Devil May Cry, but with the characters from Persona 5. And funny enough, there still is that kind of social life, daily life simulation type gameplay element where it is summer vacation, you're on a road trip with the Phantom Thieves, but you still have to try and manage your time equally and defeat enemies or try and spend time with your Phantom Thief friends during your summer break. And it is a very, I would say, cut-off experience compared to the first game, meaning that it is a direct continuation, but it expands in different areas within the Persona formula compared to what a base Persona sequel like that of Persona 6, for example, would be deemed as. So what this particularly means is that Atlus have broken up these games into two separate genres. They're still both considered JRPGs, but one is more of the classic JRPG style, and the other one is more action-adventure oriented, and it's shorter, where Persona 5 Royal lasted for around 120 hours, and Strikers, I beat it like a few days ago, and it took me around 50 hours to complete, with that of side missions as well, so it's probably less if you just do the main story stuff, but these games are absolutely worth bang for your buck. The base game of Persona 5 was already 100 hours, but with Royal it includes even more content that makes the game even better, amazing soundtrack pieces, which for me as a music lover speaks to my soul. Specifically, some of the songs that occur near the end of the game are phenomenal, and the characters themselves are incredibly relatable and down to earth that anyone who plays these games can connect to any one of these characters. And again, it is not in the sense that you have to play Persona 1, 2, 3, and 4 to play Persona 5, because each of the games revolve around different characters and different stories. Kind of like, again, Final Fantasy. So if you jump into Persona 5 as your main game within the Persona series, this is the literal perfect time to jump into the game. Persona 5 Strikers came out less than 2 weeks ago. It's a direct sequel to the original game of, Persona 5, but Royal enhances the experience even more. Over, I would say, around, if you play everything that Royal has to offer with Strikers, that means that you have almost nearly 200 hours worth of content to play around with. And experiencing this journey, which some people might see as a grind since it takes so long to beat or play through, I think you genuinely just have to experience these games for yourself directly to get what I'm talking about. And again, if I were to spoil the plot about some of the characters in the game, or the ending, or some of the meaningful adventures that you go along with your friends, and you find out and discover who they really are along the way, there is nothing that I could say that could compare to you experiencing that journey for yourself. And me personally, it really spoke to me on a one-to-one level with some of the characters in the game. I won't spoil who exactly, but your friends that you meet as the Phantom Thieves and their journeys that they have to overcome with the trials and tribulations that they face during, I would say, near the epicenter of the story. And seeing them evolve and overcome their fears and their worries and their doubts through Strikers even more, with an amazing combat system and super fun mechanics and just a super fun and energetic story, makes it all worthwhile. And I genuinely think that if you're stuck at home and you have nothing better to do, since COVID's still happening, and sure, there's the vaccines and stuff, but still people aren't able to really go back to how normal it was previously, being able to experience these games, interact with friends who really resonate with you on a personal level, and just go on these journeys, which means so much to so many people, me specifically as well, just is something that I heavily recommend to anyone who is looking for a new game to play, or say you beat Spider-Man PS4, Remastered, Miles Morales, Marvel's Avengers, all the Arkham games, any superhero game that you hear me talk about on this channel, and you're looking for something to play next, Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers are the main two that I recommend you go for. Now, that pretty much was barely just the bare bones analysis of this game. You got turn-based combat, amazing soundtracks, you have to balance your life as a student and pretty much as a superhero. You live life literally by a day-to-day basis throughout the entire year of the first game, and then Persona 5 Strikers is just you on summer vacation on a road trip throughout Japan, which is very fun and amazing to see all these locations really fleshed out within Japanese history and just these locales that you normally wouldn't be able to visit if you're just stuck at home. And honestly, one of my favorite moments I can say without spoiling it is the awakenings of each character's individual persona. I mean, they gain their powers throughout the game, and seeing them accept who they are, embrace that, and take, you know, the world by the horns, take the bull by the horns, and confront their deepest fears and overcome them in the best way possible, shows that anyone can stand up to injustice in the world and love yourself for who you are and embrace that in the best way possible. And honestly, again, these games are just so special. I've never really talked about them on the channel before because I thought there was no need to, but since I previously just recently beat Persona 5 Strikers, which is the main sequel to the base Persona 5 game, I thought now, if you're a new fan within this series and you're very unknown on the front of what games you should look into that you should play next, or just the series as a whole, hopefully my kind of botched explanation kind of did some aspect of analysis of what the game is, and hopefully encourage you to try these games for yourself. I mean, there's no demo or anything that you can do for free, but honestly, if you want to support developers that genuinely make great games and amazing stories, and you want to pay money to help those developers continue making great games, Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers. Persona 5 Royal is my game of the year of last year. Persona 5 Strikers is currently my game of the year for this year, but we will see if that changes once Gotham Knights releases or some other game launches down the line. But anyways, guys, that was the video that I had for you today. It was just me rambling and praising Persona 5. I'm sorry about that. I know my descriptions probably weren't as good, but hopefully the footage that you saw during the video maybe gave you some perspective as to what you can experience within the game. And also, you've heard in this video and previous videos me using the soundtrack from Persona 5, which every single song is a straight banger, and literally some of my favorite music I've ever heard in any video game ever. So with all that said, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy. It would really mean a lot to me, and it would definitely support the channel as much as you could possibly hope for. So until next time, everybody, we will try and do more videos and possibly live streams in the future, but right now this is just me kind of rambling about why I think Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers are games that definitely deserve your attention and support. But until next time, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Stay amazing, everybody. Peace out.
You are held captive.